All right. My name is Bob Neubauer, Miamisburg High School. We're going to continue on with our Workforce Development Podcast. I'm excited today to introduce Pat Moharder. Not only is he a Miamisburg community member, and his kids have gone through Miamisburg, but he has worked with me a few times. Just met with another student today on trying to get some kids into learn some welding and into the trades. And I'm going to kind of turn things over to Pat. Maybe you can introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about you.
Right. Again, my name is Pat Moharder. I'm a union iron worker for I'm in my 23rd year. Like you said, I am a resident of Miamisburg community. I moved down here back in '02, and shortly thereafter, I stumbled across union iron work, believe it or not. The path was long, but at the same time, very interesting. When I first moved down here as a new resident, of course, I was looking for work. That's what you do. When you have responsibilities, you look for work. And through calling the phone book, my experience prior to moving down here had been in cell phone and broadcast towers. So I was used to working outside. I was used to working with steel, used to working with equipment, cranes and whatnot. And when I moved down here, you pick up the phone book back in those days, and anything that had to do with steel erection, towers, communications, telecommunications, steel erection, anything like that in a phone book, I was calling. And everybody hung up on me. They'd be like, I'm sorry, we only hire through the hall. Click. We only hire through the hall. Click. I didn't know what they were talking about. So this one lady thankfully had mercy on me. She's like, I'm sorry, sweetheart, we only hire through the hall. And I was like, can you please not hang up? I was like, what hall are you talking about? And she said, the union hall. I'm like, can you be more specific? And she's like, well, Iron Workers Local 290. And I'm like, is there somebody that can tell me more? And I'll never forget, the contractor's name was Elco Steel, and she put me in touch with the owner named Doyle Law. And he then gave me the information for Local 290, gave me the name and number of the apprenticeship coordinator at the time. And make a long story short, the rest is history.
Great.
So I literally stumbled across union ironwork.
That's fabulous. Yeah, I know we recently and for the last several years have tried to take some students through, I know the local apprenticeship coordinators group puts on a great kind of hands-on opportunity to talk to not only the coordinators like yourself, but also to talk to the current apprentices so they can hear a little bit more about what opportunities are out there in the trades industry. And if anyone was interested in anything like that, I can certainly help students get connected to those areas. So you've been a coordinator for a while now. What does that look like for your specific industry? You have people all sorts of ages coming in. Can you tell me a little bit about the apprenticeship itself and what that looks like?
Yeah, the apprenticeship program hosts a wide variety and broad spectrum of individuals, obviously. As long as you're physically capable and able to do the work, there's no age limit whatsoever. The minimum requirements, of course, are you do have to be graduated or from high school with a diploma or a GED. You have to be able to pass a drug test, of course, have a valid driver's license. Those are the minimums. And the program itself is designed for everybody and anybody. Doesn't matter if you're tall, short, thick, thin, male, female. We're going to be able to teach you what you need to know to be an effective and successful union iron worker. Okay, that the program is designed between the related technical instruction at our facility, where we have a classroom environment as well as a very large shop opportunity, but it combines that with on-the-job training, real world experience out in the field, making the money, earning the benefits, working side by side with other iron workers, other apprentices, as well as journeymen, to get that real exposure, making the money and that hands-on experience, because there's no substitute for that. Mm-hmm. We can do the best we can in a shop environment to imitate it, but the real experience is out in the field.
Great. So then somebody doesn't need a welding certification to walk into your apprentice. Will they get all of that through what you offer through the apprenticeship?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Our structure is pretty straightforward and set. The first year of apprenticeship, it's a lot of introductory. We're going to do an introductory course to welding. Obviously, safety is huge. Safety is always the major topic on hand. apprentices start out their first year, first course they take is an OSHA 10 for construction. It's a minimum safety requirement for all of our contractors. We tailor it as it pertains to iron workers. So along with their OSHA 10 for construction, we do a subpart R OSHA class, which is specific to steel erection, us iron workers. And they also get a fall protection certification, all in that first 2 weeks of class.
Gotcha.
Now throughout the rest of their 4 years, they're going to get first aid CPR. They're also going to get confined space. They're also going to get lead training. They're going to get silica training. They're going to get the different aerial lifts, man lifts type training to access, obviously, the work at heights. We also get certified. We'll certify them to be forklift operators, even telescoping rough terrain handlers, for on-the-job applications versus in a factory type application. So there's a lot of credentials and certifications that they will walk away with at the end of their 4 years.
That's great. That's great. And like you said, the hands-on experience as well. So it's not just sitting in a classroom, it's getting everything, and you're working while you're learning these skills and learning to work with others and creating kind of a network of people. That's fabulous. What would you say are the pros and cons of your industry? I know every industry has some things that people love and people hate, and I'm just curious, what are those things that you've had to overcome to enjoy the things you love about your industry?
Pros and cons are really almost subjective to the individual,
right?
Because what I might find a pro, somebody else might find as a con, but I have no problem sharing all of that. To me, one of the biggest pros is the constant change. Okay. As union iron workers, our scope of work is so broad. We work with several other trades in a lot of what we do. It's called a composite crew. So not only do we as iron workers do the structural steel, but we'll partner with other tradespeople, whether it's millwrights or carpenters or glazers for glass, not to mention boiler makers for industrial maintenance type purposes. So we do a lot of different work. We do a lot of the heavy lifting when they do the finer tuning of things, if you will. And that's in a nutshell. So we do a lot of different things. So I like that constant change. I spent a bulk of my career in the field building bridges. Well, every bridge was different. Every situation, circumstance, every condition was different. So even though I chose to pursue a specific, aspect of ironwork, it changed all the time. Even what I was doing on a bridge changed all the time. I might be welding, I might be setting end dams, I might be working with crane operators, moving material. It can be a wide variety of things. So constant change to me was a pro.
Okay.
Different job sites, different coworkers, different contractors even from time to time. So I like that change and that variety instead of being stagnant and boring every day doing the same thing for 10 hours a day for 30 years.
Every job's a little different.
Not my cup of tea.
Right.
Other pros, of course, include the benefits and the pay. As union iron workers, our pay is very, very competitive. All right. We set a minimum wage, but contractors can very easily pay above that, based on your merit and your worth and everything else. And that was one of the things I liked about it too, because I was mentioning earlier that I don't gamble on anything but myself. Mm-hmm. And when I knew that my success or failure was based on me, I had no worries about choosing this career path because I knew I'd succeed. It's a grown-up world. And fortunately, I got in at a grown-up time. I was in my 30s when I started this journey. Okay. So I was a little more mature than some people, but it worked for me. Good. And it's been a great career path for myself and my family.
So one of the things that strikes me when I think of iron workers is heights. I am not a big fan of heights. Is there a place for somebody who struggles with heights in the ironwork industry? Are there still jobs, still things they can do? Or is that just something that has to be something they need to be able to deal with to do that?
Both. Yeah, in all honesty, there's definitely a place. I would hate for someone who has a fear of heights to not at least look into it and try. Okay. We have a lot of aspects of our career field that are lower level based, ground based. At the same time, though, I can't promise you or anybody that they won't be asked to work at heights, right? Especially as an apprentice. unfortunately, as an apprentice, you need to do what we need you to do. All right. Now, once a person goes through the program and becomes a journeyman, for instance, their, for lack of a better word, their freedoms are a lot more out there. They can choose their work. They can choose who they work for, where they work, the tasks they're doing. For instance, if it's a job at Heights, they can simply say, nope, not going to do it. It's that simple. Putting yourself in a box like that, though, could limit your work opportunities.
Gotcha.
And through the program, both at our facility and out in the field, we're going to work with you. We're going to work with you, one, to show you the safest way to do things. And a lot of times, knowing that you're safe and that you're doing it in a safe way can eliminate those fears. It really can.
Good.
And we have the ability at our facility to expose you to those heights. We have our own equipment to go up 30, 40 feet in the air. We have our own structures for you to get on and climb and access at heights. So we have that ability to expose you to it till you get to a certain comfort level.
So if somebody goes through the apprenticeship program, we're going to talk a little bit about the application process through here. They earn those certifications. Is the goal to keep them in the Miami Valley area, or what happens if somebody's interested, maybe all of a sudden, something happens within their family and they're looking to move to another state, or they're just really kind of interested in traveling and doing something different? How does that work with the apprenticeship, and is that an option for some?
Travel is absolutely an option for all of our members, not
Okay.
just the apprentices, but also our journeymen, of course. And matter of fact, there's a lot of journeymen that love that aspect of ironwork is they can go anywhere in North America. Your membership card to Union Ironworkers gets you anywhere in North America.
Okay.
Okay, all the provinces of Canada, all the U.S. states and their territories. Okay, so there's a local somewhere that you can work out of.
Gotcha.
You can feed your habits that way. I mean, if you're a hunter and you want to go out west and work out of Denver's local for a month while you hunt elk, knock yourself out.
Okay. That's great.
Same with Alaska or anywhere else. We have iron workers that go south for the winters and
Okay.
work out of Tampa, work out of Houston, because they don't want to work in Ohio or Michigan when it's, 12 degrees outside and there's 8 inches of snow on the ground, and that resonates through the apprenticeship program as well.
Right.
I mean, there's obviously details involved, but we encourage people to experience what all of ironwork has to offer. And if something does end up being long-term, like you mentioned, the family issue and someone might be forced to move, you can transfer your membership, you can transfer your apprenticeship if necessary, and those are all details that can be worked out.
Gotcha. Thank you. So what if somebody is interested in welding, interested in kind of learning more about the iron workers? They could obviously contact me and I can put them in contact with you, but what does that application process look like? Do you start classes all the time? Is it only so many times a year? What would that look like for a student getting ready to graduate here?
Okay. Typically, we have two paths. The more traditional path would be aimed towards someone who's busy and in school and things of that nature right now. And it's our traditional pathway, which consists of a testing and interview process conducted in the spring, usually late March, early April, where they would come to our facility on a specific day, go through a physical assessment of tasks, as well as take a math test. And then they would also sit down with other journeyman iron workers, okay? Not administrators, not myself. We'll bring iron workers in from the field. And they'll actually sit down across the table from two other iron workers and go through a bank of questions and get interviewed by them. Based on the scores of all of that, their physical assessment, the math test, and their interview, they'll get ranked. And let's just say we have 20 openings and we have 60 applicants that go through that process. Top 20 scores get in. The remaining people would fall into another category where we would, at that point, offer them an opportunity to sign up as what's called a probationary iron worker. This is the other pathway. And we utilize this a lot with people who, for instance, are switching trades or switching industries from retail and they want to get into construction, or, maybe they're coming out of the military, okay? We'll sign them up as what's called a probationary iron worker. And it's probationary in both directions. The individual is putting, I don't want to say us on trial, but they're testing us out for size.
Okay.
They're getting an opportunity to go to work in the field, learn hands-on with other iron workers, and they're deciding then if this is what they really want to do, almost literally with a handshake agreement.
Gotcha.
Okay. If it's what they want to do, great. We'll transition them into the apprenticeship program next available slot. If they decide it's not for them, no problem. It's simple. This isn't for me. I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm out. Tear up the paper, handshake on your way, no problem. That's the probationary for them putting us on trial. But it goes the other way as well. Because we work closely with our contractors, we're constantly getting feedback from coworkers, from supervision, the contractors themselves, safety personnel on this individual's performance in the field. And just to be honest with you, if they're unreliable, if they're missing more days than they're showing up, if they're constantly on their phone, because they've got that phone addiction, if they're working unsafe, we're going to get all these reports. Well, we might not offer them a position in our apprenticeship program.
Gotcha.
So we're on probation to them, and they're on probation to us. So it works out really well. So there's not that culture shock.
Right.
It gives them the opportunity to get out in the field first before becoming an apprentice, before we get them registered with the Department of Labor, before we get them registered as a college student with Northwest State Community College. That's something else I didn't mention is all of our apprentices are registered with Northwest State Community College, which is a small community college up in Northwest Ohio. It's a lot like Sinclair. So the courses they take through our apprenticeship, they actually earn credits for through Northwest State.
Gotcha.
So their OSHA classes, they get those from Northwest State. We are basically a satellite campus for them.
Okay.
So by the end of their 4-year program, they're only about 10 credits away from an associate's degree.
Okay.
And depending on which degree they go for, those last 10 courses, they can actually double major.
Okay.
Because if you go for the one, you get both.
Gotcha.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's another benefit to these apprenticeship programs, especially ours.
Right. So as a senior getting ready to graduate in May, it sounds like maybe March or April is when your next application process would kind of go through. They would miss that because they don't have their diploma yet, correct? So would they want to contact you and try to do the probationary period maybe this summer? Would that be their best next option?
I would not wait.
Okay.
Just being honest with you.
Okay.
Having the diploma or GED with the transcripts is not a requirement for application.
Gotcha.
It's just a requirement from the Department of Labor for our apprenticeship program.
Gotcha.
So by the time they go into the program, they would have already had those.
Okay.
So they don't need it to apply. I would recommend not wasting any time.
Yeah.
Go to our website, which is iron290.com. Go to apprenticeship and training. Apply here. It's that easy.
Great.
That application then comes directly to me. From there, either myself or my coworker will reach out to you, the individual, I should say, and we'll get them scheduled to come in.
That's excellent.
Anybody we're not able to fit into the first immediate June class, but still wants to choose this path, we're happy to sign them up as that probationary iron worker I told you about, get them working as our demands call for, and then I'll just filter them into the available seats in the apprenticeship program.
Gotcha. Okay.
So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does very much so. Thank you. And so you've referenced a few times, get them working. So you help connect them with a job. So they're going to be gaining experience while they're going through the program. What, it sounds like that could be a variety of different companies, variety of different tasks. You talked about a minimum pay. What could somebody expect? Two questions here. One is, what would somebody expect to maybe start out at? And is there a cost for them to take these courses through your apprenticeship process?
Expectation on wages. Our first year apprenticeship wages right now are $22.73. Okay, that's the minimum starting out wage for a first year apprentice. We typically get raises every June.
Okay.
So we'll be getting another one. I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be just yet.
Right.
So a minimum of $22.73 right now, probably safe to say over 23 by June 1st of 25. So that's the minimum wage. And when I say minimum, I do stress that because if the individual is that individual that shows up every day on time, works their butt off, is humble and teachable, our contractors are willing to pay for that because they want that individual that's moldable, teachable, works safe, uses their head, basically has all the intangibles that the program itself can't teach. All right. And they're willing to pay for that a lot of times. So we have apprentices at all 4 levels making more than they're scheduled to
Gotcha.
because the contractor wants to take care of them and keep them.
Yeah.
So that's the expected wage minimum. They can make more than that, they just can't make less.
Gotcha.
The other half of that, what was the other half of that?
The cost, is there
Oh,
a cost to them for the courses, those sort of things, the training? What does that look like?
No, the apprenticeship program itself is free.
Okay.
All the tuition for Northwest State Community College covered. Everything they take at our facility is covered. And like I said, even out in the field, they get paid. So there's no cost of apprenticeship whatsoever. They are responsible for their own hand tools, like the tools that they would actually wear on their tool belt. That's a big one. It's not thousands of dollars, but it's an investment. All right. Good pair of work boots and a reliable vehicle.
Okay.
Because you had mentioned earlier, where in the Miami Valley. Well, our jurisdiction is a fair size. It's not huge, but it's not metropolitan Dayton either.
Right.
So there is no cost as far as for the apprenticeship program itself. The only out-of-pocket expense is your union membership dues, which for each individual would be $32.50 per month. So for that membership, you get all the training for free, you get all your college credits for free. Even beyond your apprenticeship, you get all your training for free. So if you need to renew your welding certifications, if you need to renew your first aid CPR, you need an updated OSHA because some contractors want something that's not 15 years old.
Right.
All that is free just for your union membership, as well as your health care is paid for. We talked about benefits. The pay is phenomenal, but the benefits, I would say, are even better. Okay. Phenomenal health care, 2 retirements in the form of a pension and an annuity, plus there's 3 other funds that the contractors pay into that cover all of your training and your apprenticeship and what we call an industry fund to help procure work. So all that's paid for by our contractors. So on top of the $22.73 that a first-year apprentice is making, that same contractor is paying another $22 and change in those benefits.
That's fabulous.
So 18-year-old kid out of high school is actually earning over $45 an hour. Half of it's their paycheck, the other half is their benefits. So that's a huge
With
plus.
no student loan debt.
No student loan debt. I mean, it's safe to say that if you're going to go to a 4-year college, you're going to spend about $100,000. In the same 4 years of an apprenticeship program, you're going to make about twice that. Okay, so to me, that's a no-brainer. Go in debt $100,000, make $200,000 with a college education. Hands-on experience. You already have the job. I mean, you go to the University of Cincinnati, you get your accounting degree, you have no experience. But yet, what does every employer want? Someone with experience.
Right.
Well, through the building trades, union iron workers, you have that experience. You've already been working for 4 years.
Yeah.
And possibly you're this close to an associate's degree, and you've been making the money, and your annuity has already grown, your health care has already been paid for, your pension is growing, and you're already there.
That's great. That's great. So, before we get to our final question, there was one thing I wanted to bring up. When I took the students to the coordinator's apprenticeship meeting, and they were walking around talking to several students, I just happened to have the opportunity to see you. You were chatting with a young lady. She was, if she was 4'8", that was amazing. She was very small, and you briefly talked about it, but I'd like you to go into a little bit more detail. How does the training differ from somebody who's 6'8" and 260 pounds versus somebody who's 4'8" and 100 pounds? Are there strengths and weaknesses working with different types of people? How does that work for you to be able to address training in that way?
Well, the program will teach you to use your brain and your body. Okay, in a nutshell, I say that to everybody because we have very large people and we have some really, really small people. And we have a lot of successful small people, and large people. Not just 6'8", but thicker.
Okay, yeah.
If that makes sense. But the program will teach you to use your brain and your body. How an individual chooses to do a specific task is going to vary. Like I might at 200 pounds, just pick something up and move it. Somebody half my size and a foot shorter might not be able to do that. But they're going to use their brain. They're going to get a piece of equipment, get help, work together with a coworker, and they're going to make it happen that way. The training itself isn't going to vary. We make, not to sound cold, but we make no concessions for anybody.
Right.
Because you have to be able to do it one way or another. So we're going to teach you what needs to be done and give you options to get it done. You pick what works best for you. You pick what's the safest way to do it. You pick what's the most efficient way. You know, because it's all about safety, time, and money.
Thank you. That's helpful. So I have the pleasure of talking to a lot of students about what comes after high school, and I often hear, oh, I want to work with my hands, but I don't know what to do, or I hear I have no clue what to do. What kind of encouraging words do you have for somebody to try an ironworker's apprenticeship, or just look and explore into any kind of apprenticeship in the trades, and just kind of what is your advice for someone who's just unsure of what comes next?
Well, like you just said, and I can say this because no one came to my high school and did this.
Right.
I was raised college prep the whole way, went to college. I went to the University of Cincinnati to be an accountant. Life happened. I did not become an accountant. 14 years later, I stumbled across union ironwork, right? My encouraging words were keep your eyes open and be willing to try. You never know what's out there. You never know if you're going to like it or not unless you try it. So if you have an interest in working with your hands, great. There's 13 building trades unions in the Miami Valley. There's probably one that's going to fit something you would like to do. You know, I wouldn't recommend trying all 13. Hopefully you find one in your first or second try, you know, but you have to go out and experience life. Okay. That is probably one of the biggest things I would have to say about that. And I actually wrote down something else earlier. Yeah. Don't waste time. The thing about time is, and this is just the gray-haired man in me coming out, is that's the one thing they're not making more of.
Right.
You can't get it back. You know, as much as, you know, us mature guys will want to rewind the clock, just never going to happen. Cannot make more time. So don't waste it. Constantly be looking for what's going to satisfy you.
That's great.
And I mean that because I don't want anybody to become a union iron worker for the pay. Okay? Yeah, the pay's great. Don't get me wrong. You know, but I don't want that to be your motivating factor.
Right.
Because otherwise you're going to have a 30, 40-year career that you hate, that you're miserable at doing. Don't put yourself and your family through that. Okay? Find what satisfies you. Okay? It happened to be, for me and my family, ironwork. You know, were there sacrifices? Absolutely. You know, my career path took me away from home a little bit, so I missed some things. But my outlook and my goal was to provide. So I was doing what I thought was the best to provide, both financially, benefit-wise, keeping a roof over my kids' heads, all that stuff. And so there are some choices. You mentioned earlier doing what you love. Well, I like to use the word passion. If you take the root word for passion in the Greek, it means to sacrifice. And if you think about anything you're passionate about, and then you analyze and you say, am I willing to sacrifice for that? The answer is always going to be yes. Well, I'm passionate about ironwork. I'm also passionate about my family. So I had to sacrifice a little bit of one for the other because I'm passionate about both. So I had to miss a few things. I had to spend time out of town. This was my choice to do so, but it was what I thought was best. So it's work. It's real world adult work. It's a grown-up environment. And I'm not trying to sound any way about young people coming out of high school, but they need to understand that.
Yeah.
You know, they need to be talked to in plain English, you know, grown up plain English. There's none of the building trades is going to hold anybody's hand. And a lot of times that can be a culture shock to people.
Right.
So we at 290, we try to prepare them through the probationary period.
Yeah.
You know, so that we get them working as soon as possible. If they're not into an apprenticeship class right away, we're going to get you working as soon as possible so you don't have that culture shock. You know, and you get to get your feet wet. You get to dip your toe in the pond and get out there and experience it, you know, before you've invested time and end up realizing, this isn't for me after all. So we want to get ahead of that curve, if you
Right. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Pat, for coming in and meeting with us today. And if there are students or even families that hear this and would like to hear more, please feel free to reach out to me, and I can make sure I get you in touch with Pat. But again, Pat, thank you so much, and I look forward to working with you more in the future with some of our students.
Absolutely, Robert. I appreciate being here.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a good day now.